Hi, and welcome to Own Your Peace. I am your host, Andy Thewison, and today I'm diving into human design and parenting and how human design can really help elevate your parenting and help you really understand your child and what they need on an energetic level. I did do an episode all about human design, but this one's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to key in on the things as a child that each energetic type needs and things that you might want to be doing differently as a parent of that child. This has been a huge game changer in the way that Kelly and I have parented and the way that we've shifted things and done things differently after discovering human design and how it really has helped us understand our children and what their needs are on such a deeper level. And it really is such an amazing tool to really weave into the parenting story. So, what I would like to talk about is how each individual design needs different things. And then where I'm going to tie into a little bit of the profile lines because the profile lines also really help a lot when it comes to parenting and what your kids need to feel safe and secure as they move throughout life. So one thing I will say is as I'm talking about these human design elements, a lot of these you will see in childhood start to play out. But as we go into more in-depth parts of human design, when we talk about the primary health system and the arrows and the incarnation cross, those are things that kind of come online a little bit later in life. Typically, we start to see these as elements as a child, especially when we look at taste and touch and those kind of things. But then us, as we move into adult years, these really start to become more ingrained in how we're meant to show up as we move through your first Saturn return. And with that, that's when things really start to kind of ratchet up in adulthood. So those are some things to keep in mind. So if you're like, well, my child doesn't really do that, they will, and they'll start to show early signs of it. But as they get older, these things become more and more a part of who they are and how they best function in the world. So those are some really key elements to keep in mind. So let's start at the very beginning. We'll start with reflectors. So you have a child and you are parenting a reflector. This is a completely different thing because as a reflector, they are 1% of the population. So they are meant to do life differently than 99% of the population. So understand that you have a very unique soul. They are completely wide open, but they also have this beautiful, like Teflon aura. So yes, they're completely open and you would think, oh my goodness, they're so, open to receiving everybody else's energy. They're very open to conditioning, but that Teflon shield around them, that aura really protects them from taking on too much. And it's almost like they're sampling other people's energy. And then just like a Teflon pan, it's going to like slide right off. So they're not really taking on other people's stuff in the way that maybe a projector does because they go in and they are really engrossed in the aura. Or this one, they just kind of sample it and like let it glide right off. So they are very, for lack of a better word, indestructible when it comes to experiencing other people's energy, where you might think they are a little bit more fragile. They are very much meant to be powerhouses. And most of the reflectors that I have worked with are very strong humans and they are very, very influential in the world. And it's interesting to me that they get this rap of being these like shrieking violets where they really absolutely are not. They are very powerful beings and they mirror back. So, as a parent, if you have a reflector child, they're going to mirror back your behaviors. They're going to mirror back what you give them. So, if you have a child who is sassy, check yourself. Are you being sassy with them? If they're being disrespectful, are you being disrespectful to them? Because they are going to mirror back the energy that you're giving them. So it's really important to keep that in mind. And with them being so interchanged and molding and changing, they're going to need really a lot of space as they grow, as they develop to be 100 different reiterations of themselves. So you can't get too attached of any one version of your child because they are meant to move and shift and change and evolve so many times throughout their lifetime. So you're going to see all these different variants of your child, and all of them are them, but don't get too attached because they are meant to evolve and change and move. So really allow them space to play with the way that they show up in the world. Allow them space to try things on, try different personalities on, different personas on. Allow them this place of play and just really floating through the world and really experiencing it with this curiosity and wonderment. And that's the way that they're meant to move through the world. They also really need time and space in their own energy, because the more that they have time and space in their own energy and they're learning what that feels like, then it's easier for them to remain kind of in their own space when they're around other energies, because they know what's theirs and really what's not. So, really helping your child spend time in their own space, in their own energy, and helping them understand what feels like them and what doesn't. And that takes a little bit of practice, right? I mean, I know for me, it took a while for me as a projector to really understand what's my energy and what is somebody else's I'm picking up on. And once I did that, I was really able to stay more in my own self and in my own energy when I did that. But it does take time. It really does. So, some things to think about. And then also, they're really sensitive to their environments. So, it's important that they are in places that feel good to them. Make sure that their rooms, their spaces within your home to be little mini sanctuaries for them that feel really safe and secure for them. And if they're going to places or, areas that don't feel safe to them or don't feel good to them, then maybe think about if you're able to switching schools or switching different things so that they feel really safe and secure in their spaces, because they are really able to find out and feel into what feels secure and what's safe. And they'll know when it's time to move on from something and when it doesn't feel really secure for them anymore. So keeping that in mind for my parents of reflectors. Give them grace, give them allowance, give them space to really float through life, and allowance to do so, because that's kind of what they're meant to be doing. And if we're holding too tight to any one version of them, we hold them back from becoming who they're meant to become. All right, now moving on to my manifestors. Manifestors are a vibe. They are these fierce, independent souls who truly are meant to almost parent themselves. They really do have this big, energetic aura and have this like knowing of what is needed for them to do what they need to be doing in this lifetime. So, as a parent of a manifestor, the best thing you can do is allow them space to explore and to not feel too boxed in. Because when a manifestor feels boxed in or feels like they're being held back from what they want to be doing, then that is when anger comes in. So it's really important to allow your manifestor to have this kind of more space to make mistakes, to try things out, to move through life with this knowing that they know what they need and what they want out of life. That's a hard thing as a parent. I have two manifestors, and we always think we need to give them parameters, we need to give them rules, we need to teach them how to like listen and obey. And yes, those things are true. We need to teach our children to be respectful. We need to teach them how to be obedient. But this is like that fine line of teaching them respect, obedience, and all those things, but also allowing them to kind of break the rules because they're meant to, and having space to do that. So, if you are raising manifestors, I give boundaries and I give my girls free reign within those boundaries. So, if my daughter is going to a friend's house, that's great, have fun. But if things are changing, inform me on what's going on, inform me of what your plans are. You're not really asking me for permission. You're telling me what's going on so that I know, so that I can be like, does that feel safe? Does that feel good to my mama heart? And then we can have a conversation. So, really, when it comes to manifestors, you're going to have to give them a lot of rope to be independent, to do things in their own way. And if you have manifestor kids, you're probably like, yeah, there's no telling them what to do. They're going to figure it out whether I help them or not. And that is 100% true. when they get their heart set on something, they are like blinders are on, and that is all they can think about, especially when it's connected to an urge. So again, the best thing we can do for our manifestor children is to support them and really train them to inform you as to what they're up to and what they're wanting to do. Because then you can help, you can support, and you're going to really help that child know how to inform as they move throughout life. I have one daughter who I raised without a whole lot of human design. I learned it later in her teen years. And then I have one daughter who we found out pretty early on that she was a manifestor. She was probably like maybe 10 or no, she was younger than that, probably 8 or 9 when I really started to discover human design. So I was really able to shift things a lot for the younger versus the older. They're both beautiful, independent, lovely girls. And I love my girls so much. But I will tell you this, my oldest, because she was so often told no, learned that it was better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And that was a pattern that we saw play out a lot. Is she really just kind of kept things, not necessarily lying to our faces, but lies of omission, not telling us full truths, because she was so used to us like kiboshing her and parenting her and telling her no. Where our younger daughter, we learned that we needed to give her a little bit more independence and allowing her to make decisions a little bit more independently of us without so much discipline. And so she is really good about informing us and letting us know what she's up to. And she's really good about being like, it's okay if you tell me no, but this is what I want. And so the two are very, very different. And we've worked a lot as Morgan's gotten older, and we've repaired some things that we did wrong as parents. I was our first child. We were learning. We had a lot of growing up to do ourselves. And as we have really worked on healing parts of that relationship with our oldest daughter, who we love dearly, things have gotten so much better because she's able to inform us with the freedom that she knows we'll tell her yes, and that we'll support her when we can and how we can. And our youngest has that. And it's so great to see that she's able to feel safe in informing us as to what she's up to. And it's night and day difference. That's like the hardest thing with parenting. I'm going to go on a little side tangent here is as you transition from being a parent to a child to being a parent to an adult, it is a really hard to let go and just allow them to make mistakes because you're sitting on the sidelines of a game and you're watching your kid play as they step into adulthood, and some of the plays that they're making, you're like, oh, that's gonna come back and bite them. It's not gonna be great. I wish they'd listen to me. But here's the deal. They're in the game. They've got their skin in the game. They've got their own mistakes to make. And as much as we would love to be in there and like right in their heads, like coaching them what to do, it's their mistakes to make. It's their game to play. It's not ours to play. It's theirs. Yes, I'm there 100% for my kids. And if they need anything at all, but I also had to like let go a lot and allow things that I wish I could have stopped, or I wish I could have been more verbal about, like, oh, what are you doing there? But like I said, it's their life. It's their choices that they need to make. If we look at their life plan, maybe these things have to happen for them to learn and to evolve and to grow into the adult that they're meant to be. So that's the hardest thing. As I have gone from parenting children to adults, I've got one adult and I've got another one coming up real close behind. So I'll have two adult children. And it's a lot to be finding that fine line between support and love and guidance, but also allowance for them to really step into their own adulthood and own their choices and where they're going with their own lives. So that's the side tangent. Moving on. So for manifestors, just be there for them, help them learn how to inform and be a support to them as they need it. That's like the biggest thing I can tell you, the manifestors. And they're going to push boundaries a lot because they know boundaries are meant to be pushed. So you're going to have to change your parenting game a little bit with manifestors for sure. Now, moving on to projectors. Projectors really do have this energy of more observance, more seeing the world around them and observing and seeing things in a completely different light than most people. So, the way that you can support your projector child is helping them to feel seen, because that is salve for the soul for projectors. We need and crave recognition and the feeling of feeling seen, because we're so good about seeing everyone else and what they're good at, what they're glowing at. My superpower is seeing the superhuman powers in other people. Like I can look at you and be like, oh my goodness, you're so good at that. And I can immediately tap into that and just show you how to step into more of that. And that's one of my favorite things about coaching and working with my clients is of what I'm able to see and the potentials that I can see and helping them step into it. And that's what makes me really good as a projector. But as a projector child, I didn't feel very seen. I didn't feel very supported in that. So that's the best gift you can give your projector child is to constantly give them tons and tons and tons of verbal affirmations. Tell them all day long what you think is unique about them, what you see in them. That is their love language. They need to hear it. They need to be told. And here's the thing, most projectors, you're going to think that they're so confident and cool and collected and just, they're so good at seeing so many things. You're going to think that you don't need to compliment them because they feel like they're so confident. They don't need to hear all that verbal affirmations. They do. There is not a projector on this planet who does not need to be told that they're amazing. And they need to hear it on a consistent basis because that is like fuel for their soul. So making sure your kid is constantly being praised. The worst thing you can do for a projector child is be super critical of them and judgmental of every decision and everything that they do. They need lots of compliments. They need lots of like, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on this? Really engage them in conversations and really ask them, invite them to share their opinions on the world with you. If you watch a movie together, what did you see about that? What was your perspective on this? You will be surprised how much wisdom your little projector has within them when you start allowing them space to show you how they see things. And it also gets them in the mindset of sharing the way they see the world, so that as they grow into adulthood, they're not trying to overcome fear of being seen because they're so used to being seen all the time and they're used to being asked their opinion and being really respected for the way that they see the world. So if you can start to cultivate that now for them, chef's kiss, they're going to be so much further ahead than us older projectors. But yes, verbal affirmations 100% all day long. Make sure you're giving it to them. Make sure you're facilitating conversations where they can give you guidance. I will say that they will try to tell you how to parent and how to parent better, because they will see what's working, what's not working for you. Take it with a grain of salt and then an allowance for that. That's really important. And then when it comes to facilitating play dates and things like that, remember, a projector needs an invitation. So maybe you're the parent who helps invite friends over, or you help set up play dates so they have those invitations. So helping to facilitate those invitations, also super important for your projector children. But those are some really key elements there. Now, moving on to our manifesting generators. Manifesting generators have a lot of energy. It can be a lot. So adding an element of exercise first thing in the morning so they can kind of, work off the crazy a little bit will be helpful. So with that, like, help them find ways to move their body first thing in the morning so they can focus a little bit better at school. And also understand that your kid is going to pivot a lot, allowing your kid to try all the things and not feel like they have to be stuck in any one lane. As a coach, I do see a lot of wounding around them having belief that they can't finish what they started, that they just, they're quitters, those types of things. So you can have conversations where, hey, I love that you're ready to move on to something else. Maybe let's finish out the season and we can try something else. So you're finding that balance between, keeping commitments that you made to a team and then allowing them to continue to pivot like they need to. Your kid will pivot. They're going to change interests a million times. And I think the most frustrating thing as a parent of a manifesting generator is they're good at everything they do. They go in and master something and move on. They go in and master something and move on. So you're going to see your kid thriving at something and being so good at it. And, our parents, sometimes we like to live vicariously through our children. And because they're so good at it, we get the praise for our kids. It has nothing to do with us, really. But because of that, we lock in or oh my goodness, they're going to go pro, or they're going to get a scholarship for this, or we have all this excitement around our kid being so good at something. And as a manifesting generator, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to go on to something else. And it can be really frustrating as a parent because you're like, you're so good. If you just stuck with us and continued training, you would be in the Olympics or something. Sometimes we go there as parents, right? We always want to think the best for our children. So allowing them to be like, well, okay, we're going to switch gears and allow it, because everything that they try, all these different hats that they put on throughout their life, are all going to be things that they need. So they do need that constant shifting, new hobbies, new things going on. So maybe rent equipment before you commit to buying for the long term. Just some things to think about for your manifesting generator shield, but allow them to have plenty of time to play, allowing them extra, activities to wear out their energy. They're going to be very active kids, and they're going to need a lot of activity in your life. So you can use those things to help support your child in that. And now moving on to generators, there's some of the things I say for generators are going to also be true for my manifesting generator kids. So both kids have this strong sacral response where they're meant to stay in joy. They're meant to stay in play. They're meant to really just does this excite me? Then yeah, we're doing it. So that will be true for both. For generators, they are really meant to step into something that they're meant to master. There's not going to be as much pivoting as a manifesting generator. One of the major thing is that I get asked a lot is I have a kid who's a generator. They don't really love school. How can I get them excited about school? And the most important key element I can give you for raising a generator or a manifesting generator, this works for both, is how can we make this fun? How can we make this a game? When we start to gamify things, then things they get excited about it. And then it's not necessarily school anymore. It's a game. So maybe it's if they finish all their assignments, they get a sticker for each assignment, and then they get to go to the jump park. Just find ways that you're really tying what they are not as excited about to something that they are excited about, and make it a game. I like to call it, it's a very technical scientific term. I call it Mary Poppinsing it. So when we add a spoonful of sugar to something that is not as exciting, make it a game. I remember my middle, Boston, is a generator, and he hated doing homework when he get home from school, and every day it was a fight. So what I did is I would started setting up a time lapse camera, just on my phone, and I would put it on time lapse, and we would record him doing his homework. And he would have so much fun watching the video back of him doing his homework. So he would get home, we'd set up the camera, we would do his homework with a time lapse, and then he would have fun watching the video of him doing the homework after he was done. And that was something that made homework something he looked forward to and actually didn't mind doing when we made it a game. So think about ways, how can I gamify this? How can I make this more fun? And this is true for you. If you're a generator, a manifesting generator, and you have to do things you don't want to do, how can you make it a game? Let's say you have mountains of laundry you need to fold and you're really not looking forward to it. Maybe find a really great Audible to listen to, or a great podcast. I know one that's really great that you can listen to, and you can binge that while you're doing the thing you don't want to do, when you're doing dishes or making dinner, or the things that just kind of drain you. Layer it with something fun, something you're really excited about, or something you enjoy. Maybe it's just fun music, or maybe it's watching a favorite television show you don't really make time for anymore. But you have to be very intentional with making space for doing these things and adding that level of fun to things, because the more you add fun to it, the more there's going to be less griping, less complaining. And so that's important things to think about too. Try to find ways to honor your child's no's. for both manifesting generators and generators. This is for all children, as well as like, how can we find the balance of like, if your kid really doesn't want to do something, how can we find a balance? So a lot of times, if Boston doesn't want to do something, I really ask myself, does he have to go? Is it crucial for him to go if he doesn't want to go? Because we as adults know if a generator doesn't want to be there, they're the biggest wet blanket there. But if they do want to be there, they bring the party. So finding ways to be like, okay, he really doesn't want to go. It's okay if he doesn't go. He doesn't want to be there. He's going to be complaining, like be sad about it the whole time. Let's just not have him go. And that's fine. Or if I do really want him to go and it feels like my mama heart is like, no, he really does, like we need him there. Then I try to find things that are special for him that we could do. So just kind of finding those elements of what is exciting for your child and helping to gamify those things really will help you move the needle forward. And everything I say for these children, these beautiful children of ours, are true for adults. So if you're seeing, ooh, I felt that, like that felt like a really deep inner child wound of like not feeling seen as a child, or never being asked for my opinion when I wanted so deeply to be asked. This is a really great opportunity for you to go back and reparent yourself and really allow yourself to heal those parts of you that maybe things triggered you a little bit during this podcast of like, I wish my parents would have done that for me. Or I wish that my parents had that understanding of me as a child. These are areas that we can go back and we can reparent and allow and do things a little bit differently. Talk to that inner child, be like, I'm sorry nobody asked you for your opinion. You're really good at it. Just finding ways that you can do that. Or maybe imagine and you got really ridiculed because you didn't stick with things. And you can go back to your little child and be like, you were doing it right. You 100% were meant to not stick with things. And that's great. Look at all the different things you got to try and all the different things you learn from all these different things that you try throughout your lifetime that you quit at. That's okay. So we can use these things that maybe we're like, oh, a little ouchy when I talked about, raising your kids, because our kids are really great mirrors for our own triggers and our own hurts and our own wounds. And the thing is, we can do things different. We can break cycles. We can do things differently with our children and help them be more healthy, more well-adjusted, because we know these things about our kids. Now, moving on to the 6 different profile lines. When you're looking at your little child's human design chart, I can put a link there so you can run a free chart on my website. It'll have different profile lines. It'll be a 1 through a 6. And you're going to have 2 different profile lines. Those 2 different lines have very distinct energy and very different needs based on what they are. And your kid will have any variation of those 2. And that's important to know. So when I look at the 6 lines, I want you to think as like 1 is the kind of the beginner foundational line. And then we move up to graduation at line 6. So those are some things to think about. So as we're kind of moving through these lines. So if your child has a line 1, they need information to feel secure. Information helps them understand the world around them. So they need to understand things. They need to see things and feel into things before they happen. So they're going to probably feel a little bit more nervous about things that are new, that are different, that they don't have any information or knowledge on. So if you're going on vacation, or if your kid's going to a new school, set up an appointment for them to tour the school or meet with their teacher so they can have that, oh, okay, I understand this. I can see this now. I know what to expect. And that will really release that fear as they move into new things. So if they do have any line 1, make sure that they are kind of learning about it beforehand so that they're more secure. And if you have a line 1 in your profile as a child, and obviously as an adult, you're going to be a little bit more shy at first. You're going to be a little bit more reserved at first because you don't know what you're walking yourself into. You don't know everybody's energy. You haven't really felt it yet. So you're going to kind of hang back. Your line 1 kid is going to be a little bit more hesitant at first. So that you might think they're shy or they're reserved, but really they're just taking in the new group setting and learning and filling it out. And once they feel secure within the energy around them, that's when more of their personality will feel safe to come out. So if you're like, why is this my kid like all of a sudden all shy? They're never shy at home. It's because they're filling things out to see if they can, how much of their true self they can feel safe to allow. So some things to think about there with a line one. If you have a child who has a line two, that's the natural. So their gifts and their talents come so easily to them that they don't know what their talents are, because for them, it's as easy as breathing. They don't even have to worry about it. Like, it's just there. So really helping your children see what their talents are. For instance, my son, he's so good at computers. Like, I swear he's like, he came out speaking computer. And for him, it's so simple, so easy. He doesn't even see it as a talent. He thinks everybody is so smart at computers. But actually, no, you're literally a genius. Just because it's so easy to you doesn't mean that everybody else doesn't struggle with it. All three of my kids are 2-4s. So they each have like one thing that they're really good at. They just think everybody's not as naturally gifted as they are. My daughter, Tatum, she's the dancer. For how late she started and where she's at now, it's kind of phenomenal because she's just a natural dancer. She's a natural performer. It just comes so easy to her. And yes, she's worked at it. Yes, she's cultivated it, but she has this natural tendency toward it that has skyrocketed her in a very short amount of time. And then my oldest just has always had this really cool energy of like learning about all these things that are a little bit more esoteric. And she just has this wisdom, this really strong esoteric wisdom and knowledge of how the world works. And it comes so easily to her. And she just gets it. And it's amazing to watch her. She's just a natural born leader, too. So it's fun seeing how these natural gifts and talents that each of my kids have, and they really don't see them as talents. So it's, as a parent of a line two, it's really important to help your child see what their talents are, because they're going to have a harder time with it. And then as we move into a line three, these are kids who need a lot of tactile learning. They're going to be a kid that you're going to be like, oh, that stove's hot, don't touch it. They're like, okay, I'm going to touch and find out. You told me no, cool, I'm going to try it out for myself. So they're going to kind of test boundaries a little bit more with that line three, because they need to learn for themselves. So they have this yearning to learn, to try things out, to think about how things work. So if you have a kid with a line three, they're going to test boundaries. They're going to try things out. They're going to make some mistakes, and that's okay. So allow them space to make mistakes, because again, I've always said that line threes have this Thomas Edison energy to them, where it's like, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways a light bulb didn't work. And that's the energy of this, is they're trying things out. Oh, that didn't work. Moving on. Trying something else. And that is the way that they're meant to move through the world. So allow them to be like these little scientists that try things out and test theories, and they're going to make mistakes, and that's part of their process. And just understand that with every mistake, they're very good about learning from those mistakes, and that's part of their learning process. Now, moving on to if you have a kid with a line four. Now, kid with a line four, they are the natural networkers. They need their group, they need their people. So these are kids that you're going to want to make sure you're facilitating little niche groups for them and helping them find their group of people. And also, that being said, is their greatest opportunities in life will come from their immediate friend group. So you want to really help your kid understand that if they have a bunch of loser friends, they're not going to be getting very far in life. They want to really hang out with other kids who are achieving what they want to achieve, that have goals that are similar to their goals, because whoever's within that inner circle, they're either going to drag them down or they're going to lift them up. So it is really important to really watch the friend groups of your kids with the line four, because that really will indicate where they're going and how they're moving through life. All your kids are going to be independent. They're going to do their own thing, but that friend group is going to be where new opportunities are presented to them. So helping your kid understand that it's important to have really strong, good friends with that line four. And then we learned to move to line five. And line fives are meant to be the messengers. They're meant to share the message with the world. They're meant to like go through all these different lines. And now they've learned some things, and now they're ready to share the message. And a lot of people will project on line fives because they see them as these people who are very highly capable that can do lots of things and that they have this like save the day vibe. So, one of the biggest things with a line five, if you have a line five child, is yes, people will see them as highly capable, and they are obviously very capable. But here's the thing, it's learning for them when to say yes and when to say no. If they get asked a lot of things, because people can feel their capability, is that something that you're actually good at? Or is that something that you're going to just like figure it out? So learning how to say no to all the invitations that you might get as a line five, because again, people have this, they can feel this energy of like, oh, they can fix all my problems. They can solve everything. And, as a line five, they want to be like the white knight riding in on the white horse to save the day, but knowing that they're not meant to save everything. So really like stick within your skill set. What are you actually really qualified to fix? Let's focus on that and not just saying yes because someone asked you to. So that's really important with a line five. And then we move to line six. Why you're parenting them, their first 30 years, they're going to move more like a line three. So you've got this kid who's also very much trying things out, moving through things with trial and error. Line sixes are really old souls. So there's a lot of wisdom immediately with the trial and error process. And as they get older, they're going to start to spin all these mistakes and all these things that they went through during those first 30 years. And they're really going to move those into becoming this Buddha or this like person that we look to, this role model for us to really look to for advice and for how to be, because they are here to become whatever it is they want to become. They are meant to be this source that we look to for wisdom and for guidance, but that comes through those first 30 years of being this trial and error process. So if you have someone with a 6'3" or a 3'6" profile, hold on, Hattie, you got double threes for the first 30 years. So they're going to be making lots of mistakes and they're going to be really trying things out. But again, they're not failing to fail. They're learning. It's an evolutionary process for them to make all these mistakes and move on from them. So I just wanted to add those profile lines because I feel like when we understand their energetic type, and then we add these profile lines, especially with like these, the line one where we know that they kind of need some security before moving into new situations. Or if you have a kid with a line three, they're going to try some things. They're going to make some mistakes. Their life's going to be a little bit messy for someone who has a line three, especially if you're a 3'6" or a 6'3", where you're like double threes for the first 30 years of your life. You're going to get your hands dirty as you move through your life. So those are some really key things to think about. Now, as we move on, some really great ways that you can continue to support your child is by getting a soul alignment digital reading where it's 15 to 16 pages of what I see on their charts. So we can go a little bit more in depth on these things and give you some more tips and tricks on those. And I also do children's readings, which are great. And I do recommend if you have a child who is 12 or older, have them sit in on it so that they can hear these things. And I share them. And when I do children's readings, especially with a child in the room, we have great conversations and I really help them understand it in a new way. So those are just a couple different ways that I can support you to better understand human design for your child. I hope these are really helpful tools that you can use. Much love, and I'll see you next week.